The rain fell in relentless sheets against the ancient windows of Blackwood Manor. The estate stood like a brooding sentinel on the edge of the moors, its towers half-shrouded in mist. Generations had lived and died within its walls. But tonight it felt unusually alive. Something stirred in its shadows, something watchful. Detective Clara Hensley had never believed in ghosts. But when she received the letter summoning her here, the handwriting shaky and desperate, she felt a twinge of unease. The letter came from Margaret Blackwood, the current mistress of the manor. Margaret's words had been frantic. "My brother has vanished. The police do not listen. I beg you, come before it's too late." Clara, with her reputation for solving unusual cases, could not ignore it. She arrived by carriage, her trench coat soaked through, her heart heavier than the luggage she carried. At the great oak doors, the butler, Mr. Finch, greeted her with a stiff bow. His face was gaunt, his eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. "Welcome, detective," he murmured, his voice low as though the walls themselves were listening. "Mrs. Blackwood awaits you in the drawing room." Clara followed him through a maze of corridors lit by flickering candles. The air smelled of old wood and secrets. Margaret Blackwood rose to her feet when Clara entered. She was a woman in her 40s, tall, elegant. But her hands trembled. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "If you cannot find my brother, no one will." Clara removed her hat and Saturday, "Tell me everything, from the beginning," she urged. Margaret clasped her hands together, her knuckles white. "It was 3 nights ago. My brother, Henry, retired to his study as usual. He often stayed up late reading. In the morning, his door was locked from the inside. When we finally forced it open, he was gone." Clara frowned. "Gone? Without a trace?" Nothing was disturbed. His books lay open, his pipe half-smoked. The windows were shut, the fireplace cold. Yet Henry had vanished. Clara felt a prickle run down her neck. "And the police? They searched, yes. But they said he must have wandered off in the night. They know nothing of my brother, he was no sleepwalker." Margaret's voice cracked. "I fear foul play." Clara's eyes sharpened. "Who was in the house that night?" Margaret hesitated. Then began listing them. "My son, Edward, of course. He is 22, restless, and impulsive. Then there is my niece, Lillian. She is visiting from the city. The butler, Finch, the maid, Alice. And the cook, Mrs. Donnelly." Clara noted the names carefully. 6 people in the house when Henry disappeared. "And your brother, was he troubled? Did he have enemies?" Margaret looked away. "He was secretive. He spent hours locked away in that study. I know he corresponded with someone. But he never told me who." Clara rose. "Take me to his study." The room was at the far end of a hallway, tucked away like a forgotten secret. The door bore scratch marks, evidence of it being forced open. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of old tobacco. Books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling. A desk sat near the window, papers neatly stacked, a candle burned down to a stub. Clara examined everything carefully. The rug showed no signs of struggle. The window latch was secure. Yet something caught her eye, a letter half hidden beneath a book. She pulled it free. The letter was written in the same shaky hand as Margaret's message. But this was not addressed to her. It read, "The secret lies within the manor. If they find it, all will be lost." It was unsigned. Clara's pulse quickened. She slipped the letter into her pocket. Then she examined the walls. One panel looked newer than the others. She rapped it with her knuckles, hollow. A hidden compartment? Before she could explore further, footsteps echoed in the hall. She turned to find Edward Blackwood leaning against the doorframe. His dark hair fell across his forehead, his smile crooked, almost mocking. "Snooping already, detective?" he drawled. Clara studied him carefully. "I'm doing my job." "Where were you the night your uncle vanished?" Edward shrugged. "In my room, asleep." "Why? Do you think I spirited him away into the night?" His eyes gleamed with something unspoken. Clara filed away his arrogance as evidence of a restless mind. Later that evening, Clara dined with the family. The long table groaned under silver platters, yet the atmosphere was cold. Lillian, the niece, was quiet, her eyes darting nervously. Finch stood silently behind Margaret's chair, his presence looming. Mrs. Donnelly bustled in and out, her hands stained with flour. Alice, the maid, poured wine, her hands shaking so much she spilled a drop. Conversation was forced, every word weighed. Clara felt as though each person carried a secret they dared not speak aloud. When the meal ended, Margaret excused herself early, pale with exhaustion. Clara remained behind, observing. Edward lit a cigarette, his gaze challenging Clara. Lillian rose quickly, her chair scraping. "I'll retire," she murmured, her voice trembling. Clara noticed Finch watching her with hawk-like eyes. Once the room emptied, Clara wandered the corridors, her mind whirling. The letter. The hollow wall. The tension between the family. That night, she could not sleep. The storm raged outside, rattling the windows. Around midnight, Clara rose, lantern in hand, and returned to the study. She pressed against the hollow panel. With effort, it slid open. Behind it was a narrow passage, descending into darkness. Heart pounding, she stepped inside. The air was damp, smelling of earth and mildew. The passage twisted, leading her beneath the manor. Suddenly, she heard a sound, a faint whisper, a shuffle of footsteps. She doused her lantern, pressing against the wall. A shadow moved ahead, carrying a candle. She strained her eyes. It was Lillian. The young woman hurried down the passage, clutching something to her chest. Clara followed silently. The passage opened into a hidden chamber. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old ledgers and maps. In the center stood a chest, iron-bound and heavy. Lillian knelt before it, fumbling with the lock. Clara stepped forward. "What are you doing here?" Lillian gasped, dropping the object she held, a key. I was only," her voice broke. "You wouldn't understand." Clara picked up the key. "Then explain it to me." Tears welled in Lillian's eyes. "Uncle Henry found something. Something terrible. He said it would destroy the family if it came to light. He hid it here." Clara's fingers tightened on the key. "And what did you hope to do?" Lillian sobbed. "I wanted to protect him. But now he's gone. And I fear the worst." Clara knelt by the chest and inserted the key. The lock clicked open. Inside lay stacks of letters, bound in ribbon, and a small leather journal. Clara opened the journal. The first page bore Henry's handwriting. The Blackwood fortune is built on lies. If the truth is revealed, it will end us all. Clara read further. The journal described smuggling, bribery, and even murder, crimes committed generations ago by the Blackwood line. Henry had uncovered everything. He wrote that he feared his discovery had put his life in danger. Clara's stomach knotted. Who else knew of this? She asked. Lillian shook her head. Only me. He trusted me. Clara closed the journal. Then someone silenced him. Footsteps echoed behind them. Clara spun around. Edward stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand. His face was cold, his voice hard. Well. So you found it? Lillian cried out. Edward, please, don't. He ignored her, his eyes fixed on Clara. Henry was weak. He wanted to destroy everything father built. I couldn't let that happen. Clara's heart pounded. So you killed him, she said quietly. Edward's smile was cruel. I only did what had to be done. And now you know too much. He raised the pistol. Clara's mind raced. She glanced at the lantern she had left on the ground. With a swift movement, she kicked it toward him. The lantern burst open, spilling flame across the floor. Edward cursed, stepping back. Clara lunged forward, knocking the gun from his hand. They struggled, their shouts echoing through the chamber. Lillian screamed, frozen in terror. At last, Clara struck Edward across the jaw, sending him sprawling. She seized the pistol and trained it on him. It's over, she said, breathless. Edward glared up at her, hatred burning in his eyes. You've doomed us all. Finch appeared in the doorway then, drawn by the commotion. His face was grim, but not surprised. So it's true, he muttered. I suspected as much. Clara forced Edward to his feet. He confessed, she told Finch. Henry uncovered the family's crimes. Edward silenced him. Finch nodded slowly. I will inform Mrs. Blackwood. She must hear it from me. Edward spat on the ground. You're all fools. The Blackwood name will never die. Clara tightened her grip on the pistol. Names mean nothing when weighed against justice. She marched him up the passage, Lillian trailing behind. In the drawing room, Margaret awaited them. Her face crumpled when she saw her son in chains. No, she whispered. Tell me it isn't true. Edward said nothing, his silence damning. Clara handed Margaret the journal. This is what Henry discovered. Your brother tried to protect the truth. Your son killed him for it. Margaret's sobs filled the room. Finch stood stiffly, his jaw set. The storm outside had quieted. But within the manor, chaos reigned. Clara felt the weight of centuries pressing down. Edward was taken away, his protests ignored. Margaret retreated to her chambers, broken. Lillian wept quietly, clutching Clara's hand. Finch oversaw the servants, who whispered in fear. The house felt emptier than ever. Clara spent the rest of the night writing her report. The truth of the Blackwoods would soon come to light. Henry had died. But his voice would not be silenced. Clara gazed at the journal once more before sealing it away. She whispered softly, "Justice is done." Morning dawned pale and cold over the moors. The manor stood silent, its secrets dragged into the light. Clara prepared to leave, her duty fulfilled. Margaret did not come to see her off. Finch, however, met her at the door. "You've done what few could," he said gravely. Clara shook his hand. "The truth is never easy. But it is necessary." With that, she stepped into the waiting carriage. The wheels crunched over gravel as she departed. Behind her, Blackwood Manor loomed, scarred but unbroken. The moor stretched out endlessly, the mist rising once more. Clara leaned back, exhaustion tugging at her bones. Yet her mind would not rest. She thought of Edward's words, "You've doomed us all." What had he meant? She glanced at the journal in her bag. There were still pages she had not read. Secrets Henry had left behind. Secrets that might yet claim more lives. Clara shivered despite the morning sun. Mysteries rarely ended cleanly. The Blackwood curse, it seemed, was far from broken. She resolved to study the journal more carefully once she returned to the city. For now, she had done what she came to do. But deep in her heart, Clara knew the darkness of Blackwood Manor would not rest so easily. And someday, it might call her back. The carriage rolled on, leaving the manor shrinking in the distance. The rain had stopped. But the storm was far from over.